I should have been asleep. It was past midnight and the house was silent, except for the occasional creak of settling wood. Charlotte lay beside me, her breathing soft, steady, unbothered, peaceful. I wasn't. My phone vibrated on the nightstand, its blue light casting an eerie glow on the ceiling. I groggily reached for it, rubbing my eyes as I saw the name on the screen. Liam, my colleague, my closest friend at work. My first instinct was to ignore it. It was late. Whatever it was could wait until morning. Then I saw the message attached to the video. You need to see this before Monday. Something about that text felt off, a warning, almost. I hesitated for a moment before tapping play. The screen flickered to life, and I instantly recognized the setting. The company's annual staff party. I remembered that night well. I had left early, exhausted from a grueling week, while Charlotte had insisted on staying longer to socialize. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. After all, I trusted her. That trust shattered. In the next 30 seconds, Charlotte stood in the center of the frame, a cocktail glass in hand. Her smile dazzling, her posture relaxed completely at ease. Surrounding her were people I had known for years. My boss, my colleagues, even some of her co-workers. They were all laughing, engaged in conversation, drinking, celebrating. And then Charlotte spoke. Oh, don't worry. By next month I'll have a new husband anyway. That one's a worthless dumbass. He doesn't even know what's coming. Laughter erupted around her. Some chuckled outright. Others hesitated. But no one defended me. I sat frozen, staring at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. What did she just say? I replayed it again and again, each time the words cut deeper, burning themselves into my mind. A new husband, worthless dumbass. He doesn't even know what's coming. My wife, the woman I had loved, supported, and sacrificed for over 10 years, mocking me openly. Not in a moment of drunken stupidity, not in anger, but in a moment of confidence, of certainty, like she had been planning this. The humiliation was suffocating. This wasn't just an offhand joke, this was public. A room full of people had laughed at my expense. My boss, my co-workers, people I respected, they had been part of it, and I had been the clueless idiot, completely unaware. A deep ice, old rage spread through me. I should have felt heartbreak. I should have crumbled, questioning everything. But instead, something inside me hardened. She thought I was stupid. She thought I wouldn't see it coming. She thought she could humiliate me and walk away unscathed. She had no idea who she had just betrayed. I placed my phone down, carefully staring at the darkened ceiling. My mind was no longer clouded with confusion or disbelief. It was sharp, precise, calculating. I wasn't going to confront her now. No, that would be too easy, too predictable. I wasn't just going to react. I was going to prepare. By the time she realized what was happening, it would already be too late. The night passed in eerie silence. I didn't sleep. I barely moved. My thoughts ran through every possibility, every outcome, every move I would make. I dissected Charlotte's words over and over again, searching for deeper meaning. A new husband. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Did she have everything planned already? It didn't matter. I would find out soon enough. I rose from bed. I showered, dressed, smoothed my tie in front of the mirror. Like any other morning, Charlotte stirred in bed, her eyes fluttering open, a lazy smile forming on her lips. Morning, she murmured, stretching. I turned to her, keeping my expression calm, controlled, moaning. She yawned, reaching for her phone oblivious. I studied her. This woman, this stranger I had shared a home with for a decade, looked so comfortable, so secure in her betrayal. I wondered if she had even thought about me last night, if she had felt even the slightest guilt, judging by how easily she greeted me. I already knew the answer. "You're up early," she noted. Slipping out of bed, I shrugged, buttoning my cuff. Busy day ahead. A lie. Today wasn't just another work day. Today was the beginning of something bigger. She kissed my cheek absently before heading to the bathroom. I stood there watching her walk away, the same woman who had called me worthless just hours ago. My jaw clenched. She had no idea that by Monday everything would change in the office. The moment I stepped into work, I felt it. The stares, the hushed whispers, the pity in people's eyes. Liam hadn't been the only one who knew that. Much was obvious. They were waiting for a reaction, a confrontation, an explosion. I gave them nothing. I greeted people, as usual, sat at my desk, typed emails, attended meetings. I pretended like I was clueless. Let them believe I was the fool they had laughed at inside. I was already calculating my next move. First, lawyers. I needed to secure my finances, gather records, protect my assets. Second, evidence. I needed to find out if Charlotte's betrayal went beyond mere words, if there was someone else. Third, control. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make sure that when I did, Charlotte would have nothing left to stand on. By the time I left the office, I had already set my plans into motion. Charlotte had no idea. She thought she had time. She thought she had control by the time she realized what was happening. It would be too late. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. I wasn't just going to leave Charlotte. I was going to make sure she regretted ever betraying me. I arrived home that evening to the sound of laughter. Charlotte was in the kitchen talking on the phone, her voice light and cheerful, the way it had always been when she was trying to impress someone. I lingered in the hallway for a moment listening. "Oh, stop it. You're too much." A pause, a giggle. "Of course he has no idea. You worry too much." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palm. So it wasn't just a joke. I had spent the entire day preparing, setting the foundation for what was coming. I had called my lawyer, arranged for financial protections, started gathering documents. I had even reached out to a private investigator if she thought she was playing a game. She was about to realize I was 10 moves ahead. I walked into the kitchen, keeping my expression neutral. Charlotte turned startled for a fraction of a second before masking it with a bright smile. She quickly ended the call. "Hey, you're home early." I forced a small smile, walking to the fridge to grab a bottle of water. "Not really." She leaned against the counter, watching me. "You okay? You seem a little off." Oh, the irony. I took a sip of water, meeting her gaze. "Just tired. Long day." She nodded, studying me. She was trying to read me, to gauge whether I suspected anything. I gave her nothing. She grinned. "Well, guess what? I made dinner." This was typical whenever Charlotte had done something she shouldn't have. She overcompensated with small, meaningless gestures, making my favorite meal, acting extra affectionate, laughing at my jokes a little too hard. It was her way of keeping me blind. Smells good," I said, playing along. "What?" The occasion she shrugged, turning back to the stove. "No occasion. Just wanted to do something nice for my husband." I almost laughed. She was still pretending. She thought I was in the dark, still trusting, still her fool. I sat at the dining table watching as she served the food, acting like the perfect wife. If only she knew that every move she made now was being studied, recorded, used against her. I picked up my fork, took a bite, and nodded. "Tastes great." Charlotte beamed. "See, I still know how to take care of you." I swallowed the food, looking at her. "Yeah, you do." For now, PM. The first move. After dinner, Charlotte went upstairs claiming she needed to take a long bath. I waited until I heard the water running. Before moving, I walked to her purse, carefully unzipping it and pulling out her phone. I had already considered breaking into it, but I didn't need to, not yet. Instead, I grabbed the second phone hidden beneath her wallet for her phone. My stomach twisted, but my face remained calm. So this was deeper than I thought. I scrolled through the recent calls. A single number called multiple times a day, no name attached, just a number. I committed it to memory before slipping the phone back into her bag. The evidence was piling up, PM. The confession she didn't know she gave. Charlotte lay beside me, scrolling through her phone, humming softly to herself like she didn't have a care in the world. I stared at the ceiling, listening, waiting. Finally, she spoke. So, we should take a trip soon. Just the two of us. I turned my head slightly, figuring, surprise, a trip. She nodded, smiling. Yeah, like a little getaway. Maybe to the beach. We could use some time alone. Time alone. Was she trying to ease her guilt? Or was this another calculated move? I nodded slowly. Sounds like a good idea. She sighed in relief, rolling onto her side, resting her hand on my chest. I know we've been busy lately. I just want us to reconnect. You know lies. I studied her face, her eyes warm, convincing. Charlotte had always been a good liar, but I was done being deceived. That sounds nice, I murmured, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She smiled, closing her eyes. Minutes later, her breathing evened out. She was asleep, but I wasn't. Because while she dreamed of whatever future she thought she was building, I was planning how to destroy it. The mask would stay on a little longer, but not for much longer. The next morning, I woke up before Charlotte. The air between us had shifted, but she didn't seem to notice. I watched her for a moment, her face serene in sleep as if she didn't have a care in the world. I resisted the urge to shake my head. How had I missed this side of her for so long? How had I been so blind to the woman beside me? The one who could call me a worthless dumbass in front of people I worked with, while still smiling at me like I was the love of her life. But my blindness was over. I got up, careful not to wake her, and went downstairs. I needed coffee, something to settle the storm brewing inside me. As the machine hummed to life, I grabbed my phone and texted Liam, I need a favor. Call me when you're free. I didn't have to wait long. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. What's up? Liam's voice was low, cautious. He was probably still feeling guilty about sending me the video, about blowing my world apart. The number that called Charlotte's burner phone. I need to know who it belongs to. Liam sighed on the other end. You sure you want to do this, man? Maybe just get me a name. I cut in, my tone sharper than I intended. A pause then. All right, give me an hour. I hung up without another word. An hour. That was fine. I had plenty of things to do. While I waited, I took my coffee and walked into my home office, shutting the door behind me. Then I pulled out my laptop and started going through our bank records. I wasn't just looking for signs of cheating. No, this went deeper. If Charlotte was planning something big, if she was planning to leave me, I needed to know how far she had gone. Had she already moved money, opened secret accounts, paid for a new apartment with her mystery man? I logged into our shared account first. Everything looked normal. No suspicious withdrawals, no large transfers. But when I checked her personal account, I found something. A $5,000 transfer to a name I didn't recognize. My stomach clenched. I copied the name, running it through a search. It didn't take long to find out who it belonged to. A divorce lawyer. I leaned back in my chair, my heart hammering in my chest. So it was true. She wasn't just cheating. She was already preparing to leave me. And yet she was still here, still playing the role of the loving wife, still kissing me goodnight, still pretending like everything was fine. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. She hadn't filed yet. If she had, I would have been served by now. That meant she was still waiting for something. For what? Was she stalling until she secured more money? Until she figured out how to leave without consequences? Or was she waiting for him? And the name that changed everything? My phone buzzed again. Liam. I answered immediately. Tell me, you have something? He exhaled. The number belongs to a guy named Jason Reed. The name meant nothing to me. Who is he? That's the thing. He's not some random guy, man. He works in her department. I felt something inside me snap at her office. Yeah, department. Been there a couple of years from what I found. He's single, no kids, and get this. He used to be engaged. Broke off his engagement 6 months ago. Around the same time, Charlotte started acting weird, right? I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of my desk. 6 months. That was around the time Charlotte started coming home late, started dressing up more for work, started keeping her phone closer, guarding it like a secret she couldn't afford to let slip. It all made sense. Now, you need more. Liam asked. No, I said, my voice like steel. I have enough. I hung up. Jason Reed, a man from her office, someone she saw every day, someone who had been planning something with her behind my back for months. I pulled out my phone again and scrolled through our old messages. Months ago, I had asked Charlotte about her long hours at work. She had laughed, rushing it off. Just meetings, babe. You worry too much. Lies. I checked her calendar. Next meeting scheduled late into the evening. Work events. She had told me not to bother attending. It had been right in front of me the whole time. Am the art of pretending? I heard her coming down the stairs. I took a deep breath, erasing every trace of anger from my face. I had to play this carefully. Morning, babe, she greeted, stretching as she entered the kitchen. Morning, I replied, sipping my coffee. Like nothing had changed, she walked up behind me, pressing a kiss to my cheek. You're up early. Busy day ahead, I said smoothly. Got a lot to handle at work. She smiled. Same here. I wondered if she had texted him already, if she had sent a good morning message to Jason before even coming downstairs. What time will you be home? She asked casually, pouring herself coffee. Not sure. I lied, might work late. Her eyes flickered slightly, that same flash of something I had started noticing recently. Hesitation. She wasn't worried about me working late. She was wondering if that meant she could be with him. I studied her as she sipped her coffee, scrolling through her phone. She looked so calm, so sure that she had everything under control. She thought I was still in the dark. She thought I hadn't seen the video, hadn't checked our accounts, hadn't found Jason Reed. I was going to let her think that for a little while longer, because when the truth finally hit her, when she realized that I had known everything, it wouldn't just be an argument. It would be the end of her entire plan. I glanced at my phone one last time before slipping it into my pocket. Jason Reed had no idea what was coming for him, and neither did my wife. The air between Charlotte and me was shifting, but she still hadn't noticed. Every morning she smiled, kissed me, and went about her day, completely unaware that I was no longer the man she thought I was. She thought I was still blind, still rusting, still her fool. But the game had changed. I was no longer watching from the sidelines. I was orchestrating every move, and today I was going to tighten the web around her. And the first strike? I left the house a few minutes after Charlotte, watching from the upstairs window as she pulled out of the driveway. She was probably heading to work, probably texting Jason Reed before she even reached the first stoplight. It disgusted me. I had spent years building a life with this woman, and now she was casually throwing it away for some co-worker in the IT department. But if she thought she was going to walk away clean, she had no idea what was coming. I grabbed my keys and headed to my car, but I wasn't going to work. I had somewhere far more important to be. 9 a.m. A visit to the law office. I sat in the sleek, modern office of David Hunt, a well-known divorce attorney, the kind of lawyer who didn't just win cases, he destroyed the opposition. I had done my research. Charlotte had already spoken to a lawyer, but she hadn't filed yet, which meant I still had time to turn the tables. David leaned forward, his sharp eyes scanning me. "Tell me exactly what you want and I'll tell you if it's possible." I met his gaze. "I want her to walk away with nothing." He raised an eyebrow. "That depends. Do you have a prenuptial agreement?" I shook my head. "No prenup, but I have something better." I reached into my pocket and placed a USB drive on his desk. "This is a video of my wife publicly humiliating me at a company party. I also have records of her financial transactions, including a $5,000 payment to a divorce attorney she never told me about, and I recently found out she's having an affair with one of her co-workers." David picked up the USB, weighing it in his hand. "You did your homework," he murmured, a hint of approval in his voice. I nodded. "I want a strategy that leaves her with nothing. No alimony, no assets, no way to claim anything from me. David Smurf, you're my kind of client." He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "We'll build our case around infidelity and financial deception. If she's been moving money, we can prove she was planning to leave while still benefiting from your income. That won't look good in court. And the affair, I asked. If we can confirm it, it strengthens your position. Judges don't look kindly on spouses who betray their marriage while secretly planning their escape." I clench my jaw. I need proof more than just texts or speculation. I need something undeniable. David nodded. "Then you need a private investigator." I had already anticipated that. I have one on standby. Hoon's already tracking her movements. David gave an approving nod. "Good. If we get photographic proof of her meeting this Jason Reed in a compromising situation, we'll have leverage. Combine that with financial records and the video and we can make sure she doesn't get a single cent from you." "That's exactly what I want." David smiled. "Then let's get to work." "Am watching the pieces move?" As I left the law office, I checked my phone. A message from Ethan, my private investigator. "Target arrived at work. No unusual activity so far. We update." I smirked. Charlotte had no idea she was being watched. I sent a quick reply. "Let me know if she leaves during lunch." Then I got into my car and drove. I wasn't heading to work yet. I had one more stop to make. PM, face-to-face with the other man. Jason Reed's office building wasn't far. I had already researched everything about him. His work schedule, his apartment, his gym routine, every detail that mattered. But today I wasn't here to follow him. I was here to confront him. I walked into the building and straight to the front desk. The receptionist, a woman in her mid-30s, looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked politely. "I need to see Jason, Ari," I said, my voice calm. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but tell him it's about Charlotte." Her eyes flickered with curiosity, but she picked up the phone and dialed his extension. "Mr. Reed, there's someone here asking for you. He says it's about Charlotte." A pause. Then I saw the change in her expression. "Oh, okay, I'll send him down." She hung up and looked at me. "He'd be right out." I didn't move. I just stood there waiting. A minute later, Jason walked out. He was exactly what I expected. early 30s, fit, dressed casually, the kind of guy who thought he was slick. He saw me and hesitated. "Can I help you?" he asked cautiously. I took a step closer. "You don't know who I am, do you?" He frowned. "Should I?" I smiled coldly. "I'm Charlotte's husband." His face drained of color. I saw it, the slight twitch in his jaw, the way his shoulders tensed. He knew. I tilted my head. "Relax. I'm not here to cause a scene." He didn't say anything. "I just have one question." I continued. How long he swallowed. I don't know what you're talking about." I laughed. "Don't insult me, Jason. How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" His eyes darted around as if looking for an escape. "Look, man, I think you have the wrong. Don't lie to me." My voice was quiet, but it held weight. Jason exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." He looked at me, then away. I already knew the answer. "Let me give you a warning, Jason." My voice was deadly calm. "Stay away from my wife." His eyes snapped back to mine. "But you think she's leaving me for you?" I asked, smirking. "That's cute. You're just a pawn in her game, Jason. You were never going to win." He clenched his jaw. She lied to me. And if you think she won't do the same to you, you're even dumber than I thought." I let that sink in before stepping back. "You have one chance to walk away from this before it gets ugly. Take it." Then I turned and walked out. Jason didn't follow. He had just realized he wasn't the one in control anymore, and neither was Charlotte. I drove back home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I could still see Jason Reed's face, the fear in his eyes, the way his confidence had crumbled. The moment he realized who I was, he thought he was in control. He thought Charlotte was leaving me for him. But I saw it in his hesitation, in the way he stumbled over his words. He wasn't sure anymore. Good doubt was a powerful weapon, and I had just planted it deep inside his head. Now it was only a matter of time before it started eating away at him. PM. The first crack in her perfect delusion. I arrived home and checked my phone. A message from Ethan, my private investigator. She left work met with Jason Reed in a parking garage, stayed in his car for about 30 minutes. I have pictures. I exhaled slowly, my pulse steady, so she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Not that it mattered. I replied, "Send everything to my email." Then I set my phone down, leaning back in my chair. She was so confident that I was blind. She still believed I hadn't noticed the late nights, the secretive texts, the growing distance between us. She thought she had time, but the walls were already closing in and she didn't even see it. PM. The return of the pretender. Charlotte came home that evening with the same practy smile she had perfected over the last few months. "Hey, babe," she called out, setting her purse on the counter. "Hey," I responded, keeping my tone casual. She walked over and kissed my cheek, her lips soft, familiar. But now I knew what those lips had been doing just a few hours ago. I forced myself to stay still, to not let the disgust show on my face. "How was your day?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "Busy meetings, deadlines, the usual." I took a sip of water. "You?" A flicker of something crossed her face, hesitation. Then she smiled, smoothing her blouse. Same work was exhausting. Just back-to-back meetings. You know how it is. I nodded, hiding my smirk behind my glass. She just lied. I had photographic evidence that she had spent part of the afternoon in Jason Reed's car, and she didn't even flinch when she lied to me. This wasn't guilt, this was pure confidence. She believed I was too trusting, too oblivious to question her. And that meant I had all the power. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head. "You seemed distracted." I met her gaze, holding it. just thinking about what I smiled about, how much things have changed. She stilled for half a second. Then she laughed, brushing her hair back. That sounds deep. Everything's okay, right? Of course, I said smoothly. She studied me, but I gave her nothing. After a moment, she nodded and went upstairs to change. I watched her go, my jaw tightening. She was too comfortable in this lie that needed to change. 10 p.m., the seed of doubt. That night, as Charlotte curled up beside me in bed, scrolling through her phone, I finally made my first real move. I ran into an old friend. Today, I said casually. She glanced up. Oh, who? Not really a friend, actually more like someone I just knew of. Jason Reed. Her fingers froze over her phone screen. It was so fast, so small, that most people wouldn't have noticed, but I did. I kept my expression neutral, as if the name meant nothing to me. She laughed lightly. Jason from my office. Yeah, he seemed surprised to see me. Charlotte blinked, and for the first time in months, I saw something new in her eyes. Uncertainty. What did you guys talk about? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. I shrugged. Not much. He seemed nervous, though she forced a laugh. Jason's always awkward. He's a total introvert. Probably just weirded out by running into you randomly. I smiled, pretending to consider that maybe she studied me, looking for signs that I knew something. I let her search. Then I leaned in and kissed her forehead. You know, I murmured, brushing her hair back. I was thinking we should go on that trip. You mentioned just the two of us. Her breath hitched. She hadn't expected that. She had expected me to be distant, suspicious, not affectionate. I saw the war in her eyes. Was I really still clueless, or was something off? She hesitated for half a second, too long before smiling. That sounds amazing. We need a break from everything. Yeah, I agreed, my voice warm. We do, she kissed me softly, and for the first time she was the one who felt forced. Doubt was creeping in. She didn't know how much I knew, and that uncertainty, it was going to eat her alive. Am the beginning of the end? Charlotte was asleep. I wasn't. I slipped out of bed, silently grabbed my phone and walked to my office, locking the door behind me. Then I opened the email from Ethan. The pictures loaded. Charlotte sitting in Jason Reed's car, smiling, laughing, holding his hand. My stomach twisted, but I didn't let the emotion consume me. Instead, I forwarded everything to David Hunt. The divorce papers would be ready soon. Charlotte had no idea, but our marriage was already over. She thought she still had control. She thought I was still the fool. But when the papers arrived, she'd finally realized that I was the one who had been playing her all along. The next morning, I woke up before Charlotte. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, watching her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so untouched by guilt. If I didn't know any better, I would have believed she was just another loving wife, exhausted from life's demands. But I did know better, and now that knowledge fueled me. Today was the day I started pulling the rug out from under her. I stood stretched and walked toward the bathroom, grabbing my phone on the way. I had a few messages waiting for me, and one in particular made my pulse quicken. David Hunt, everything is in motion. Divorce papers will be ready in 48 hours. Need final approval on asset division plan. Call me when you can. I smirked. Charlotte had spent months playing her little game, thinking she had all the time in the world to make her move. But she wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to leave me on her terms. She thought she would walk away with half of everything, start fresh with Jason Reed. But the moment she was served those papers, she'd realized just how wrong she was. And breakfast and lies. By the time I stepped into the kitchen, Charlotte was already up, dressed in a fitted blazer and heels, her makeup flawless. She looked radiant, refreshed. I wondered if that had anything to do with Jason Reed.
"Morning, babe," she chirped, pouring her a cup of coffee. "Morning," I replied, keeping my voice even. She took a sip, then leaned against the counter, watching me carefully. "You were up late last night." I smiled. "Just work stuff." She nodded, pretending she believed me. We were both playing the same game now, keeping up appearances, pretending nothing was wrong. "By the way," she said casually, stirring her coffee, "I was thinking we should have dinner together tonight. Just us, maybe go somewhere nice." I raised an eyebrow. Charlotte never suggested date nights anymore. She was testing me. I knew exactly what this was. She had picked up on something. Maybe my running with Jason Reed had rattled her more than I thought. Maybe she sensed the slight shift in my demeanor, the way I was no longer the oblivious husband. She'd grown comfortable, deceiving. She wanted to pull me back in to make sure I was still blind. I played along. "That sounds great," I said, smiling. "Let him do it." Relief flickered in her eyes. She thought she still had me under control. PM, the final evidence. I spent the morning working, but my mind was elsewhere. I needed undeniable proof. Not just pictures of them sitting together. Not just financial records. I needed something that would erase any doubt. When I presented my case, and Ethan, my private investigator, had just delivered it, my phone buzzed new email. I opened it, and my stomach clenched. A video. I tapped play. The footage was from a hidden camera, most likely set up in Jason's car. The angle was clear enough to show everything. Charlotte was in the passenger seat, her hand resting on Jason's thigh, leaning in as she whispered something in his ear. He laughed, brushing his fingers along her wrist. Then, in crystal clear audio, she spoke the words that sealed her fate. "I just need a little more time. Once I file, we'll have nothing to worry about. He still has no idea." Jason hesitated. "Are you sure? He seemed off yesterday." Charlotte scoffed.
"Michael, please. He believes everything I say. I could tell him I was abducted by aliens, and he'd still nod and go, 'Make me coffee.'" Jason chuckled. "So, when are we making this official?" Charlotte sighed. "Soon. Let me get things in order. First the house, the bank accounts. Then I'll break it to him." Jason smirked. "You mean blindside him?" She grinned. "Same thing. I stopped the video. I didn't need to watch anymore. I had everything I needed. This wasn't just an affair. This was premeditated. She had been planning this for months, smiling in my face, sharing my bed, telling me she loved me, all while preparing to destroy me. But now she was the one about to be blindsided. PM, the Last Supper. I arrived at the restaurant, first choosing a private corner table with a perfect view of the entrance. When Charlotte walked in, she was stunning. She had gone all out tonight. A tight black dress, diamond earrings I had bought her last year, and the confidence of a woman who believed she had everything under control. She spotted me and smiled, making her way over. "You look beautiful," I said. As she sat down, she blushed like she was still the devoted wife she pretended to be. "Thank you. You look good too." The waiter came over, taking our drink orders. Charlotte was relaxed, sipping her wine, making small talk. She laughed easily, her eyes bright. She thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming. "I was thinking," she said, twirling her glass, "we should go on that trip. We talked about just the two of us." I leaned forward. "You know what? That's a great idea. We should get away. Leave all our stress behind." She grinned. "Exactly. A fresh start." I smirked. "A fresh start. I like the sound of that." She took another sip of wine, her shoulders relaxing. Then I pulled out my phone. Taped to the back was a USB drive. I slid it across the table. Her smile faltered. "What's this?" "Go ahead," I said. "Take a look." She hesitated, glancing around as if this was a joke. Then slowly she picked it up. "Michael, what is this?" she asked, her voice unsteady. I leaned back in my chair watching her closely. "It's proof," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Proof of what you've been doing. The affair, the plans to leave me, every lie you've told her." Face drained of color. "Michael, don't," I cut in. "Don't lie to me again. I have video evidence, Charlotte." He sitting in Jason's car talking about how stupid I am, how I don't suspect anything. Her hand trembled around the USB. "You really thought you could play me, didn't you?" I continued, my voice cold, that I'd never figure it out. That you could take everything and leave me blindsided. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. For the first time, Charlotte had nothing to say. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. "These are your divorce papers," I said, sliding them next to her wine glass. "Congratulations, Charlotte. You just lost everything." Her breath hitched her fingers, tightening around the tablecloth. She thought she was the one in control. She thought I was the fool. But tonight she finally realized who had really won. Charlotte stared at the manila envelope in front of her like it was a live grenade. Her fingers twitched toward it, then hesitated as if touching it would confirm the nightmare. She was suddenly trapped in the restaurant. Once warm and lively, now felt suffocating. The distant clinking of glasses, the quiet murmur of conversations, the dim candle light, reflecting off polished silverware. It all faded into the background. The only thing that mattered now was the look on her face. Shock, confusion, and then slowly, the creeping horror of realization. "Michael?" she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a slow sip of my whiskey, letting the silence stretch between us. I wanted her to sit in this moment to feel the weight of what was happening for the first time. "She wasn't the one in control, Michael," she said again, her voice breaking this time. What is this?" I tilted my head, watching her like a predator studying prey. "I think you already know." Her hands trembled as she finally picked up the envelope, her nails digging into the paper. She fumbled to pull out the documents inside. As her eyes skimmed over the words, her breathing grew shallow. Divorce. She whispered. "Divorce," I confirmed. Her gaze snapped to mine, searching, pleading. "Michael, wait, this is insane. Why am I doing this?" I cut in, smoothly leaning forward. "You mean, why am I not sitting back like the fool you thought I was? Why am I not letting you blindside me and walk away with everything?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I let out a humorless chuckle. "You were so sure, weren't you, that I wouldn't find out that I was too trusting, too stupid to see what was right in front of me?" She shook her head violently. No, Michael, it's not like that." I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The video started playing. Crystal clear audio. The camera in Jason's car had caught everything. "I just need a little more time. Once I file, we'll have nothing to worry about." He still has no idea. Charlotte's body went rigid. Jason's voice came next, hesitant. "Are you sure? He seemed off yesterday." And then came the part that sealed her fate. "Michael, please. He believes everything I say. I could tell him I was abducted by aliens, and he'd still nod and go, 'Make me coffee.'" I watched as Charlotte's lips parted, her face going pale. She tried to speak, but all that came out was a strangled sound, as if she was choking on her own words. "That's you, isn't it?" I asked coldly. "That's your voice, your words. Tell me, Charlotte, Do I still look like the idiot you thought I was? Her breathing was erratic. Now she reached for my hand, desperation clouding her eyes. Michael, please, just let me explain. I pulled my hand away before she could touch me. Explain, I echoed, raising an eyebrow. You want to explain? Go ahead. Explain to me how you've been planning to leave me for months while smiling in my face. Explain how you were going to walk away with half of everything, leaving me blindsided while you ran off with Jason Reed. She swallowed hard, shaking her head. It wasn't like that. I wasn't going to actually leave you. I was just, I don't know, I was confused. I made a mistake. I laughed a real, deep, bitter laugh. A mistake, Charlotte. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is missing a doctor's appointment. What you did, that wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate. You planned this. You lied to me. You mocked me to your lover, and you expected me to just what? Stay in the dark, let you ruin my life? She wiped at her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No pity. I thought I loved you. I murmured, my voice steady. I really did. I built my life around you, and the whole time you were just waiting to betray me. I was scared, she blurted out suddenly as if grasping for an excuse. I didn't know what I wanted, Michael. I flinched. She flinched. I leaned in, my voice low, firm. You knew exactly what you wanted. You wanted security. You wanted a backup plan. You wanted to play both sides. And until you were ready to walk away. But guess what? I picked up the envelope and tapped it against the table. I filed first. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her carefully crafted mask finally shattering. Michael, please. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can. I stood up. There is no we anymore, Charlotte. Her eyes widened in panic. But I love you. I smirked. No? You don't? You just hate that you lost. She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I talked, cost a few bills on the table, and turned to leave. Oh, and by the way, I added over my shoulder, don't bother trying to fight for the house. It's already been signed over to me. Your account's locked. The lawyer you hired, he works for me now. She gasped. I paused at the entrance, looking back one last time. Charlotte sat, frozen in place, her world crumbling around her. I had waited for this moment, the moment she realized she hadn't just lost me. She had lost everything. Enjoy your fresh start, Charlotte, I said, smirking. Hope it was worth it. Then I walked out, and for the first time in months, I felt free. I walked out of the restaurant inhaling the crisp night air, feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time, the weight of betrayal wasn't pressing against my chest. The moment I had been waiting for, the moment Charlotte realized she had lost, had finally come. And now, as I stood on the sidewalk listening to the faint hum of city traffic, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. She had thought she could destroy me. She had thought I wouldn't fight back. But the look in her eyes when she realized that I had played her, that I had taken everything from her before she could take anything from me, that was the real victory. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to David. Hunmi, she has the papers. I doubt she'd sign them without a fight, but she knows she's cornered. His reply came within seconds. David, good. Let her panic. The more she scrambles, the weaker her position becomes. I smiled. Charlotte would try to resist. She'd fight, she'd beg, she'd bargain, but it wouldn't matter. Every move she made from now on would be a desperate attempt to hold on to something that was already gone. and I was ready for it. PM. A ghost in our home. By the time I arrived home, the house was eerily silent. I half expected Charlotte to already be there, pacing the living room, waiting to throw accusations at me, demanding explanations, trying to find a way to manipulate her way back into control. But she wasn't good. It meant she was still sitting at that restaurant, reeling. I walked inside and locked the door behind me, taking my time as I moved through the house. It still smelled like her, like the perfume she sprayed in the mornings, the vanilla candles she always lit in the evening, the faint traces of shampoo from her showers. This house had once been ours, a home built on love, on shared dreams, on whispered promises in the dead of night. But now, it was just mine. She wasn't coming back here, not for long anyway. Her name was no longer on the deed. She had no legal right to this place anymore. And soon, when she finally understood that she'd have no choice but to pack her things and leave, the thought brought me a strange sense of peace. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to check her phone to question her late nights, to wonder who she was really texting. I was done with that. I was done with her and the expected call. I had just gotten into bed when my phone busted. Charlotte, I let it ring 3 times before answering Michael. She breathed, her voice frantic, desperate. I didn't respond. I wanted her to speak first.
You can't just throw this at me like this.
She stammered. A divorce? You're seriously filing for divorce? I exhaled slowly. I already filed, Charlotte. You're just catching up. She was silent for a moment, probably trying to calm herself down, trying to think of a way to spin this. We need to talk, she finally said. We just did. I replied, voice cold. Not like this. She snapped. Not in some public place, while you humiliate me. I almost laughed at the irony. She was talking about humiliation. I leaned back against the pillows. You didn't seem too concerned about humiliating me at that company party. A sharp inhale. That was a mistake. I finished for her, smirking. I didn't mean any of it, she blurted out. Oh, so you didn't mean it when you told Jason that I was a clueless idiot, that I was too stupid to suspect anything, that you just needed a little more time before you walked away. Michael, please shut up, Charlotte. Silence. I wasn't playing the role of the forgiving, heartbroken husband. Not anymore. You thought you were being smart, I said, my voice steady. You thought you had me exactly where you wanted me, but you underestimated me, Charlotte. And now you're the one begging for a conversation. I just want to fix this, she whispered, and for the first time I heard real fear in her voice. I laughed, a dark, humorless sound. Fix this? There's nothing left to fix. You already broke it. I made a mistake, Michael. No, I said flatly. A mistake is something you regret. You were never going to regret this. You were going to leave me. You were going to take everything. You were going to let Jason Reed walk into my house, into my life, and you thought I wouldn't fight back. Her breath was shaky. I wasn't thinking straight. Oh, you were thinking just fine, I corrected. You just didn't think I'd be thinking too. Another long silence. Then, Michael, please, just talk in person. There's nothing to talk about, I interrupted. The papers are in your hands. Sign them. No, she whispered. I smirked then. I hope you enjoy court. Her breathing hitched. You can't do this to me, she said, her voice trembling. You're my husband. You're supposed to. Not anymore. I cut in, and then, before she could beg again, before she could scramble for another excuse, I hung up. I tossed the phone onto the nightstand and stared at the ceiling, feeling the last remnants of my old self fade away. Charlotte had spent months deceiving me. Now it was her turn to suffer. And the best part, I wasn't even done yet. The next morning I woke up to silence. A different kind of silence. Not the usual morning stillness before the day began, but a suffocating, heavy silence. The kind that follows after something has been destroyed. Charlotte hadn't called again. No desperate texts, no voice messages. She was either plotting, panicking, or pretending I rolled out of bed and went about my morning routine. But there was something satisfying about knowing that for once, I wasn't the one waking up to uncertainty. For once, I wasn't the one being played by the time. I was downstairs brewing my coffee. My phone buzzed. David Hunt. David, your wife, called my office first thing this morning. Wants a meeting. Said she refuses to sign the papers and is considering fighting for half. I smirked. Of course she was. Charlotte wasn't just a liar. She was a survivor. She had spent months carefully planning her next move, thinking she was the one in control. Now she was clinging to what little she had left. I texted back, me. Let her set up the meeting. I want to hear her excuses face to face. David understood, but be warned. If she thinks she still has leverage, she'll try to manipulate you. I took a sip of coffee, staring out the window. Charlotte had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. 1 p.m., the last negotiation. I arrived at David Hunt's office 15 minutes early. The receptionist led me into a sleek modern conference room where Charlotte was already waiting. She was sitting at the table, arms crossed, posture tense. She looked different for the first time. There were no calculated smiles, no confident eyes, no carefully curated arrogance. She looked like a woman who was starting to realize that her kingdom had crumbled. "Michael," she said. As I took my seat across from her, Charlotte, I replied cool and calm. David sat beside me. His presence a quiet reminder that I was no longer fighting this battle alone. "Shall we begin?" he asked. Charlotte exhaled sharply, then looked at me. Her mask was still there, but it was cracking. "I'm not signing those papers." I tilted my head. "Why not?" She hesitated, her fingers curling against the table. "Because this is insane, Michael. We had a life together, a marriage. You can't just throw it away like it was nothing." I let out a slow, humorless laugh. "Throw it away," I echoed. "Charlotte, you spent months planning to leave me. You moved money. You met with a lawyer. You cheated. You mocked me behind my back. So tell me who exactly threw this marriage away first." Her jaw clenched. David slid a folder across the table. "Letun, be clear," he said. "You have no legal ground to demand half of anything. The bank records prove you were planning financial deception. The surveillance evidence confirms infidelity, and the property deed already transferred out of your name." Charlotte stared at the documents, her face growing paler with every word. I watched her carefully, waiting for the next move, the anger, the begging, the desperation. She inhaled sharply. "Fine," she said, voice tight. "I made mistakes. But you don't have to punish me like this, Michael. We can work something out. Work something out." I repeated like, "What a deal where you get to walk away with money that doesn't belong to you, where you get to live comfortably." After betraying me, her lips parted, but I didn't stop. "You had a plan, Charlotte. You thought you were going to blindside me. You thought I was an idiot. You thought Jason Reed was your future." She flinched at his name. "Well, here's the reality. You don't get to rewrite this story. You don't get to play the victim." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "You lose, and the sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." Her breathing was shaky. Now good. Let her feel even an ounce of the pain she had so carelessly inflicted. 3:00 p.m. her final collapse. Charlotte didn't sign the papers that day, but she didn't fight back either. Instead, she left the meeting in a daze, barely holding herself together. And by the time I got home, the real fallout had begun. My phone busted a message from Liam. "Liam, bro, you won't believe this. Charlotte and Jason had a screaming match in the parking lot after work. He told her she was on her own and left." I chuckled, shaking my head. Of course, Jason had been fine when Charlotte was someone else's problem. When she was the exciting affair, the forbidden thrill. But now she was damaged goods. A woman with nothing left. A woman who had failed to execute her perfect plan. And Jason Reed wanted nothing to do with her. I put my phone down, exhaling slowly. It was over. Charlotte had spent months believing she was the queen in this game, that she was the one moving the pieces. But now she was standing on an empty chessboard alone, powerless. And I had won. The house was silent when I got home. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that lingers after a storm when everything has been stripped bare. Charlotte had finally lost. She knew it. Jason knew it. And I had known it long before she ever realized it was coming. For months, she had orchestrated her perfect little escape plan, convinced she would slip away and scath, leaving me blindsided and broken. But now she was the one left in the wreckage, scrambling for something, anything to hold on to. But there was nothing left. She was alone, just like she had planned for me. I walked through the house, noting the small details, the absence of her perfume in the air, the missing shoes by the door, the cleared-out drawer in the bedroom, signs that she was beginning to accept reality. She hadn't signed the divorce papers yet, but she would. She had no choice. I poured myself a drink and sat down in the living room, letting the weight of the past few months settle over me for the first time in a long time. I felt something I never thought I'd feel again. Relief. PM. The knock at the door. I wasn't surprised. When the knock came, Charlotte, she stood outside looking worn down, her hair disheveled, her eyes swollen like she had been crying. She had lost the arrogance, the control, the mask. I leaned against the doorframe, waiting for her to speak. "Michael, can I come in?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "Why?" She swallowed hard. I just need to talk for a moment." I considered shutting the door in her face, but I wanted to hear what she had to say. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to watch her struggle to explain herself. I stepped aside, letting her in. She walked past me slower than usual, her confidence completely shattered. I followed her to the living room, taking my seat while she remained standing, wringing her hands. "You're moving out," I said flatly, cutting through the tension. "That's good." She nodded, but her lips trembled. "Michael, please just listen to me." I tilted my head, waiting. "I messed up," she whispered. "I know I did. And I know you hate me right now. But I never meant to hurt you." I let out a slow, humorless chuckle. "That's the best lie you've told." Yet Charlotte, her eyes wet up with tears. "It's not a lie. I got caught up in something I shouldn't have. I made the wrong choices, but we built a life together. You can't just throw it all away like this." I stared at her, shaking my head. "You don't get to play the victim, Charlotte. You were never caught up in anything. You planned this. You lied, you cheated, and you were ready to walk away without looking back. So don't stand here and tell me this was some accident." She pressed her hands to her face, muffling a sob. "I thought Jason would stand by me," she admitted, voice breaking. "But he left." I smirked. "Of course he did. He never wanted you," Charlotte. He wanted the thrill, the secrecy. The moment he realized you were actually free, you weren't exciting anymore. You were just another broken woman who ruined her marriage. She flinched, more tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't love him," she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. "That's funny. A month ago you were planning a future with him." She shook her head, stepping closer. "I was stupid, Michael. I made the worst mistake of my life. But I know what I had with you was real. I know what we had was worth fighting for." I let out a slow exhale, staring at her for a long moment. "You're right," I finally said. "What we had was real. I was real. But you were nothing but a fraud." Her face crumbled. "Please," she whispered, reaching for my hand. "Give me one more chance." I stood up, pulling my hand away before she could touch me. "You had your chains, Charlotte, and you wasted every single one." Her shoulders shook as she sobbed harder. "You really done with me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. I nodded. I was done. The moment you decided I wasn't good enough for you. She collapsed onto the couch, her body racked with silent cries. I watched her for a moment, then walked to the table and grabbed the divorce papers. I set them in front of her. "Sign them." I said. She stared at them, then at me, searching my face for any trace of hesitation. She found none. After a long pause, her trembling fingers reached for the pen, and then, with tears blurring her vision, she signed. The moment the ink dried, something inside me settled. Was it the end? Charlotte had spent months thinking she was the one with all the power. But in the end, I was the one who walked away. I took the papers, folded them neatly, and looked at her one last time. "Goodbye, Charlotte." She let out a broken SOB, covering her face with her hands. I didn't stay to watch her fall apart. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her in the silence she had created. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was free.